Welcome to episode 4 of the We'll Bring the Popcorn Entertainment Podcast. I'm Brad, this is Josh, and we want to thank you all for the first month of this podcast. 4 episodes, 1 month, we're here.
Incredible.
It's been a fun ride so far. A lot of stuff that we're learning, the ins and outs of everything, really. But
Absolutely.
We've had a good time. We hope you have too, and we hope you stick around for quite a long time more.
Yeah, we'll be here every week bringing you reviews of everything. And this week in particular, we're going to be talking about Apple TV Plus's new series, Masters of the Air. They dropped the first 2 episodes, and we're going to talk about them today, as well as a review of both of our favorite films of 2023, which was Godzilla Minus One. And they put out a black and white version of it called Godzilla Minus One minus color, and we'll be talking about that as well.
I'm excited to talk about that.
I can't wait to dive into that. But this week was huge. Like, a whole bunch of news came out this week.
Yeah, a lot of stories wrapped around Netflix, but we're going to start with one about Jurassic Park. So David Koepp, who you give me a name, I'm going to butcher it. So just get used to that.
He is the name butcherer.
Give me the name. I shall butcher it.
Yes, he shall.
But he wrote the original Jurassic Park and the sequel, The Lost World. Now, he's returning to the Jurassic World franchise now to write a brand new script, and apparently they love it so much that they want to fast track it to get it out next year. And so it sounds like it's a brand new trilogy or a start of a brand new series. I think Chris Pratt has already said he wouldn't be back for it. I don't know if they plan to have anybody else back. Of course, Jurassic World, we got a few carryovers from Jurassic Park cameoing in it. But I'm interested to see, the Jurassic Park 1 was one of my favorite films.
Classic.
It was so well done. The first Jurassic World was like both of those series, the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, the first one were the best ones. The ones after that were fun, but they didn't kind of hold a candle to that. So I'm curious to see how they're going to go about bringing us back into this world.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to it's really tough to describe how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Because like you said, Jurassic Park 1 is one of my favorite films ever. I love Jurassic Park. We all loved it. But the fact that they're coming back and rewriting it, going back to this well again. I mean, it hasn't been that long since we've had a Jurassic film, in this type of universe. Like, I don't know how to feel about them wanting to fast track shooting this. Obviously, they like the script well enough that they do it. Do they really like the film, or are they like hot-shotting it to, get another cash grab? Because those films, despite how you feel about them, make a ton of money when they come out, right? But is it really going to be a good film? Is it not going to be? Like, I'm a little concerned that they're trying to rush it before the script's even done. But it's one of those films. Like, of course, it's dinosaurs on a TV screen. Like, we're gonna go see it regardless. But he's got to wonder about the quality of the film, right? Like, if the studio is excited, I want to say that's a good sign. But I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Like, to your point, we don't know who's going to be in it. Who's they probably haven't even gotten that far. But if they're hot-shotting it as fast as you say they are, and they're wanting it to come out 2025, like, they gotta, like, clock's ticking. They gotta get going on that, because those types of films, obviously CGI and visual effects take a long time to do. So they probably already have somebody in mind. Obviously, we don't know who that is, but it's definitely something to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah, because they call it a Jurassic World sequel. That would be kicking off new, but where does it fall in this timeline? Is it several years, many years after? Is there another part that, like, we really don't know any about the details to really know to be excited about it? Like, I've had fun with all of them. Of course, like I said, the first of each series was the best, so maybe this one will be great. But yeah, it is concerning that they want to rush it into production. Like,
right.
I mean, that shows confidence in it, but it also doesn't mean the quality of the film may go down because they're trying to make sure it hits next year. So, I mean, we're in January, but the script isn't finished as far as what was announced. He's still working on it. It's close to being done. So they don't have a finished script, but they're talking about getting it out next year, which means it has to film this year. So there's some concerns, but I'll be there to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, with this type of film, like, if they want to do it, like we were saying, like, you have to start, like, soon. Like, you have to start pre-production. So that leads me to believe that they're probably further along in that than they, because, like, when they start filming these movies, there's always rewrites in the scripts and everything anyway. So it's not like the script is finalized even when they start filming. But I think they've got a pretty good general idea of what the story is they're trying to tell. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Jury's still out as far as I'm concerned, but of course I'm going to go see it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll give it a chance, but I want to find out more about like that film before I really have a stronger opinion on it. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, it's, we'll keep you posted as we hear things and talk about it. And
yeah, because they announced this, but they didn't give any information. Like, all we know is that he's working on the script. They love it. They're fast tracking past that. We have no idea what's going to be happening. Like I said, there's been 6 movies so far. There's been animated series. They've definitely been milking it, but I'll be excited if they do put out something that's of quality.
Sure, of course, and we're all here for that. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things to keep an eye out for sure.
Yep,
for sure. But one of the other things that I wanted to bring up to you today was Netflix has been making all kinds of news this week. Like Netflix is everywhere this week. They've put out, you know, a bunch of different things have come out. Like Netflix wise, one of the big things was Halle Berry's film. I don't know if you saw that, the Mothership. Like she apparently shot this entire film, and I guess the studio decided that they weren't happy with the film. There was going to be a whole bunch of reshoots that they needed to do, and they just scrapped the whole thing. Like that's starting to be, it's concerning to me because it's starting to be a little bit too frequent as far as like films go right now. Like you hear about, you know, what was it? Batgirl from DC. Now you got this film, you got the Acme film that we were talking about.
Yeah, which they now sold out. They sold it to someone else to put out. They were ready to shelve it, and there was so much backlash.
Sure.
Like, people who have seen the movie were like, this is a good film. Why are you shelving it? Like Batgirl, we were hearing that it wasn't very good, even though the actors and directors were standing by it. You know, they didn't want anybody to see it. The Acme one was, that surprised me because like there were so many actors, directors, other people in the industry who said, I got to watch it and it was great. What are you doing? And so, yeah, we're seeing that trend continue. You know, of course, last year, Max and, you know, with Warner Brothers, they cleared out a bunch of series and shows and movies. Disney did the same thing with the Willow series, and a few others were wiped out. You're starting to see, like, you would see pilots. They would film a pilot. They didn't care for how it was, and they'd shelve the series. But these are completed films now that they're shelving, and completed series with, like, the Willow series. Like, it was on there for 8 months, I think, or close to a year before they decided to pull it off. And so it's definitely an interesting time in the industry to see how they're treating these properties that they already spent the money to film it, but now they're like, no, we're not going to show it.
I guess one thing I could take away is like have some solace in being at least somewhat comfortable with it is it does sound like all the people that work on the film got paid for making the film. It's just they eat the cost of that and decide to shelve it and never release it, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But this is to talk about like the insane amount of money that these studios have that they're working with, and they're not really as cash poor as you think they are if they're willing to eat. I'm not saying it's like a super high budget film. I don't know how much it costs to make, but the fact that they're willing to eat that cost completely and write it off, I don't know how I feel about it. You know what I mean?
Because at least what we heard with Batgirl, like it was going to be more effective to them to write it off as a tax write-off than to actually put the film out and see if it made any money. Like it was more effective for them to do the tax write-off. So it does say like, it's good that people got paid for what they were doing, but also to have a project they spent 3, 6, a year, depending on the project of how long it took, to have that shelved and no one ever see it. It's kind of rough to have something that you created or helped create, especially as a director, say, hey, you made this movie, we're not going to show it to anybody. Like, it's just rough.
I can imagine the toll that would take on somebody. You know what I mean? If you put, you know, your blood, sweat, and tears into this project, and they're like, it's not up to par with what we want, which is kind of rich coming from some of the stuff that Netflix has put out over the years. Kind of makes you wonder either how bad this film may have actually been. We don't know, but we'll never know because they're not going to put it out, and it's a shame.
Yeah, because there's no real reason given why. We've just heard that it may have needed extensive reshoots that would have been costly, so they decided to save what that extra cost would have been and just shelve the movie. But there's, especially when they do a lot of this stuff, they don't really give us a clear explanation on why. And I don't even think the creatives behind it get a clear explanation from the studio on why they're doing it.
Yeah, like I'd really like to get inside the head of the people that's making these decisions, because they say things that make they I hate to say that, like, they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth with it a little bit, because like they say it's for financial reasons, but the other story I wanted to talk about was They just paid $500 million to the WWE for the rights to Monday Night Raw. Like a live sports entertainment show, pro wrestling on Netflix. It's a 10-year, $500 million a year deal. And those two stories kind of collide up against each other. You're like, okay, I know they're not paying $500 million for this Halle Berry film, but they literally just dropped $500 million for WWE and the rights to, one of their television properties. And I know there's more to it and we can talk about it, but it's just like, why do you shelve certain projects, but you're just shelling out a ton of money for something else, right?
Yeah, and you're looking at, so like, we've seen streaming getting into the sports space.
Sure.
We have Amazon Prime Video has Monday Night Football. You have Apple TV has done MLS soccer and also some baseball broadcast. And you have that going. I think Peacock had wild card games as well, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're getting streaming, but, WWE wrestling entertainment is a different beast, and that's a lot of money to spend on. Well, one show here in the U.S., it also includes international, right?
Yeah, so internationally, they're getting the rights to not only Monday Night Raw, but their other two television shows that they do every week, Friday Night SmackDown and their developmental brand NXT. So they're all getting on Netflix starting next year. But there's a little bit of a dicier, trickier situation in the U.S., right, with that. So just some background. I'm going to go on a little bit of a wrestling tangent here. So if you're not into wrestling, I apologize for that. Brad's going to fall asleep, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. But so in the U.S., Friday Night SmackDown has been on Fox for the last several years, and they're moving back to USA, which is funny because that's where Raw's been for the better part of 30 years at this point, which is why it's such a big deal, right? So it's something like this is moving off of traditional cable to a streaming platform. Yeah. It's kind of the first deal of its kind, and WWE's traditionally been ahead of the curve on that anyway, but that's enough of a tangent on that. But SmackDown is domestically is moving to USA, and NXT is moving from USA to the CW. Yeah. So it's moving in the fall as well. And then you got Monday Night Raw, who is their contract with USA is up at the end of September. So there's going to be a 3-month period where we don't know yet where it's going to be. They haven't announced it, but where Monday Night Raw is going to be for 3 months until it jumps over to Netflix. Because USA said, when you're done, there's no extension. You're leaving. We're not airing you past this date. So there's going to be a little bit of purgatory for those of you that watch, Monday Night Raw. There's a little bit of purgatory there. Like they haven't announced a home for it. Now domestically, they still have a deal with Peacock for all their like WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, all their like monthly. They call them premium live events, but they used to call them pay-per-views. But now, does that all move over to Netflix once this deal with Peacock is up? Because there's a lot of business things to consider. Because now they're TKO Holdings. They're owned by a company that owns both them and the UFC. So there's also additional streaming rights for UFC to take into consideration, and it's going to be a whole like interesting way they configure all of that to air together. Does UFC move over to Netflix too? Like we don't know. Like there's a lot to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody even like it. So Josh is big into wrestling. I was into wrestling in the 90s. I haven't been big into it in a while. But I don't think anybody really saw Netflix being the carrier, the service to come out and say, hey,
sure,
let's bring wrestling onto the service. Because they've been about made content. They don't have any live content. Yeah. They don't have shows like this. They don't have sports. They don't have, they have content that's not theirs. Of course, we've got Breaking Bad. We've got a bunch of movies and other stuff they haven't done. They don't have live content. So it's interesting to see them jumping into the live content space with wrestling.
It's the first deal of its kind for them. And it's going to be interesting to see like how they do the show, right? Because it's 3 hours on cable television every week. You've also got commercials in there. Like, how's it going to look for people that don't have the commercial tiers? There's been conversations about the fact that the matches will still continue during what will be traditional commercial breaks, but if you have the ad tier, you'll get commercials like a traditional show. There's so much unknown that's going to be, going into it. And I'm actually pretty excited because I have the ad-free version of Netflix. And how are they going to do that in between segments when they traditionally go to commercial break? What's the live broadcast for that going to look like?
Have they given any details on if it's going to be included with the regular package? If you're going to have a separate package, like it's Netflix without ads plus WWE, are they going to do it as a separate billing, or is it all going to be wrapped into one item?
So it's my understanding that if you have Netflix, you'll get access to it, but it's like two different broadcasts simultaneously. You'll get the broadcast with ads, but the broadcast without ads, it's going to look like you're getting everything that's going on in the arena, right? As far as my understanding of it goes. Now we'll see how it looks when, it actually starts airing in January, which I'm excited to check it out because it's never been done this way. You know what I mean? Like Netflix, who has minimal ads to begin with, especially if you pay to not have them. Like, what's this weekly episodic show is going to look like? Because if WWE, it's 52 weeks a year. There's no off season. There's no time off, and I don't have the words for it. Yeah. Like it's exciting, but I'm very curious to see how it's going to look.
It's interesting to see Netflix entering the space like this. Like I said, I did not expect them to be going after wrestling to be their first live event. Like there's other sports and things you could have gone after, but what they went after was WWE. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how they integrate that in there. And because even when it comes to replays of old shows, are they going to have those available to be able to watch, on demand for the previous episodes? Like, there's still a lot unknown with this gigantic deal that Netflix has taken on.
Right, and their deals with Peacock, I believe, run through 2026, or sometime into 2026. I don't have the exact date, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. Like, do you just get to your point? Do you just pay to get the live broadcast, or do you get like so many episodes, or do you have to wait a couple weeks before it airs? Because I think now you have to wait like 4 weeks before the previous episode gets aired, or maybe that was just on the network. I don't remember. I'm usually watching it live. Just take that for what it is. But I don't know. There's a lot to still come out of it. But it is such a huge story because that's the first deal of its kind. So
a lot of money.
It's at least 10 years. But the way the contract works out is they have a 5-year opt-out, and after 5 years, if they don't like the deal, they can tear it up and walk away. But it's WWE. It's a moneymaker, right? So they also have the option of extending it an additional 10 years at the same rate. So when you start talking about TV rights fees and how all those are going up, it could be a huge steal for Netflix because, they're worth $500 million a year right now. Could that be worth significantly more in 10 years? It very well could be. It could be $1 billion a year property by that point, and they're making, it looked like a steal for Netflix in 10 years. Yeah. You just don't know.
And what you brought up with this is because of WWE and UFC being under the same umbrella now. Yep. Does that open up that we're going to see a UFC going to primarily movie, TV streaming service? Sure. Do we see that opening for other things too? Like, absolutely. We have the traditional sports coming out. Now you're getting the non-traditional entertainment sports and stuff coming through. So it's opening kind of a different era to streaming. Like a lot of them are looking for, the cost of everything going up. They're looking for other ways, and Netflix, hey, let's do wrestling.
Yeah.
It was surprising, but I'm curious to see how that does for them, but also how it opens up other streamers looking for other things. Are we going to be taking more and more events off of cable, satellite, streaming television to a streaming service?
Yeah.
And it opens up kind of an interesting year ahead to see if any others are like, okay, they did wrestling. What are we going to do now?
Yeah, and I know the NBA rights are coming up. I know there's Warner Brothers is working on it because the NBA on TNT has been a staple for a long time. All these different sports TV contracts are up for renewal, or bidding services are going on for different things. I know like the whole Bally Sports MLB. Not to get too deep into the woods on it, like Bally Sports is having their issues, and they carry a lot of baseball. Some of them are going over to Apple. Like there's a lot of movement.
Or is that Amazon? Amazon getting, right?
Is it Amazon?
I think it's Amazon.
Yeah, it's Amazon Prime. You're right.
Getting that, but
Apple owns just about everything.
That's a weird one because some teams have like the full broadcast rights to everything. So like, even though they announce like, hey, we're partnering with Amazon to do all baseball games, well, the teams can say no, or they don't have to be on there. Because I think they announced only 5 or 6 teams possibly would be in that Amazon partnership. So it's kind of weird because Bally Sports has been struggling for a while. And the Diamond Sports Group, who owns them, have been filing for bankruptcy, been going through a lot. Now we see Amazon trying to take some of that baseball from them, but is it going to fragment it even more? So that's another, like with WWE, we're now seeing Amazon with baseball, and we're seeing more stuff go out. So it's kind of a weird time for all of it with streaming. As we're in the Cincinnati area, big Reds fans. We haven't been able to watch the Reds for the last few years because they're not on, we don't have Fox Sports Ohio anymore unless you're on a specific streaming platform. So I use a streaming TV service that does not carry it. Only I think around here there's like a cable provider and one other service that kind of gets us the sports. And I wasn't changing my TV subscription service just to get my beloved Reds because it just wasn't worth it.
So much to keep up with, man. Because all these things, like, you can get it, then you can't get it, and you just get a random email. It's like, hey, we're no longer carrying this. Sorry about your luck.
And that's the thing. Going back to Netflix and WWE, is everyone going to realize now, like, hey, I can't watch all that on. It's going to CW, it's going to Netflix, it's going to USA, it's going here and there. That's a lot of shifting for shows that have been in one spot for quite a while now.
Sure. Changing habits is already hard to begin with, but a lot of these shuffling around it's definitely going to be interesting to see whether these audience migrate. I think going onto a streaming platform, in my opinion, is pretty smart from a sense that they're so huge, right? There's so many people that have these streaming platforms, and Netflix has got by far the biggest global reach, right? So, I mean, I think it's a win-win for WWE for sure, but
I think the biggest thing to look at now is it going to be a lose for those that don't care about wrestling, because that cost is going to now be distributed out to everybody. So we're going to be paying more every month for the service, and you're going to have a lot of backlash. I'm certain there's going to be backlash that comes because you're going to have so many say, I don't care about wrestling. I don't want to watch wrestling. I don't want it to be part of it. Why am I paying $5 more a month because you bought the wrestling?
Sure.
So there's definitely going to be backlash that comes, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle all that.
Yeah, and then you wonder if it's going to be that much of a significant increase, and it very well could be. I mean, they're just coming out of pocket for that much money. Like, how much are your already rising Netflix fees going to go up, and do people stick around just because of it? And I totally get it. You know what I mean? So it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on.
And the other big thing from Netflix this week is we finally got a full trailer for their Avatar the Last Airbender series. So, if you don't know much about it, it started off as an animated series, which was a fantastic animated series for teens, adults, anybody really. Like, it touched on so much about friendship and character and right and wrong and everything. Fantastic animated series. We got M. Night Shyamalan try to do a movie of it, and I'm not trying to defend him at all with it, but that's not something you can do in a movie. I mean, you're trying to take one season of this, 4 or 5 season show? Trying to take one whole season and put it into a running time for kids, which is like an hour and 35 to hour and 45 minutes is what they kind of go for kids movies. So you're taking a whole season and trying to boil that down into an hour and 45-minute movie. It just never was going to work.
Well, but yeah, those types of, and I don't want to put all of anime in this particular box, because there are cases where it does work, right? Like, I don't think you've watched it yet, but the One Piece live action series is really, really well done. So, but to your point, it's also a series, because to kind of piggyback off that, you have just so many different examples of when it doesn't work in a film.
Yep.
See Dragon Ball, right? Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, like, all of those are wildly successful properties, but the Dragon Ball movie was, hot trash. It's not good.
The only way that films from series have worked, if they're continuations, if they're topping things off, if it's something like that. Now, this is, trying to reboot it for a film universe, and it just didn't work. So I'm excited, especially after this trailer, seeing it.
So good.
The bending looks fantastic. The special effects, the characters feel like they're animated characters. Like, everybody seems to really be, this is based off of a trailer, but everybody seems to be fitting who they're playing. And like I said, it just looks like they've really done a good job of caring about these characters, because a lot of the show in this series was the relationships. It's about that connection between these friends finding each other and the journey that they have to go on. And you lost a lot of that in the movie. So now it looks like you're getting that back in the series. And I'm really excited to see how Netflix has done this adaptation.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And it's even better that it's coming out in just a few weeks, because I'm definitely chomping at the bit to check it out, because to your point, the animated series was so beautifully written. It was such a wonderful story. Like, it's one of those series that you can go back and watch over again. It's like a rewatchable show. Like, it's something you could go back and start over again. And I plan on trying my best to go back and watch it again before the series comes out, just to do kind of a apples to oranges comparison to see what their take on it, compares to the previous show. And I'm super stoked to check that out. And that's definitely something we'll be reviewing when the time comes, when it comes out, for sure.
Yes, February 22nd is when it drops on Netflix. And going off the Netflix model, we should have the entire season at the same time. Yes. So that's definitely going to be a binge watcher for a lot of people, and we're going to try to watch as much as we can and talk about it here with everybody.
I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. Like, they have me intrigued and my interest peaked, because we got a teaser, which everybody looked good there, but actually having a full trailer, seeing in motion, seeing all the characters, like, they look like they've done a good job with it. And I hope that translates to the whole series. That is, like, we showed you the best parts of it, and the rest of the series is crap. Like, it looks like it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic based on what I've seen so far, and that does seem to be like the prevailing sentiment based on reactions that I've seen to the trailer and talking to people I know that love Avatar and that love that series in particular. I know some people, like some of my friends, even were like, I was so happy with the trailer that I cried watching it. What I mean? Like, it looks super, super cool, and I can't wait to talk about it when it comes around.
Well, the other big story this week was the Oscar nominations came out, and there were a few snubs in there that people really thought that we were going to have. Greta Gerwig for Barbie as Best Director. She didn't get it. Margot Robbie did not get a nomination for Best Actress for Barbie. That and Oppenheimer were, if you talk about 2023 in a whole for films, it was Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Yeah, Barbie.
It doesn't mean there wasn't other good films, but that's what everybody talked. Barbenheimer was the thing of 2023. So at least I'm not seeing Greta Gerwig get the nomination for director, because she did a fantastic job, and she took a movie about a doll and made it relevant and kind of brought an interesting take on all of it. And they did a great job. So it is kind of like, there was some really good films out there and a lot of great directing and stuff, but it felt really strange that we didn't get at least her nominated for Best Director.
It's so rare with these things. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent as far as like award shows, because at the end of the day, they are a barometer of good film. They can often be a barometer of great film. But it's so rare that a film like that does as well as it does, that is nominated in so many other categories, including it was nominated for Best Picture, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so rare that a director from one of those films doesn't get nominated if the film itself, gets nominated. We've seen cases over the years of actors or actresses not getting like Best Actor or Best Actress nominated from a film, but it's almost... I don't have the data to back this up, so I'm just kind of talking off of memory here. I know, right? But that's what we do. But you think we prepare for this? But it's so rare that the directors don't get nominated. Like, I think this year there were 10, 11 films nominated for Best Picture. Don't even get me started on the fact that Spider-Man and Across the Spider-Verse wasn't nominated.
Yeah, we both feel strongly that it got nominated for Best Animated Feature, but we felt it was strong enough. And leading up to it, even everybody was feeling that it was going to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture, being one of the, I think that would have been the third or fourth. You had Beauty and the Beast and a few others that got nominated for Best Picture. We thought this was going to be along with it, and it didn't. Like, it's probably going to win Best Animated Feature. It should win Best Animated Feature, but it should have got the respect in filmmaking, not to just look at it as an animated film, that it is one of the best pictures of last year.
Sure, and to kind of go back to the Barbie conversation, like one of the big things that was an uproar about it was directed by Greta Gerwig. It starred Margot Robbie. Neither one of them got nominated, but Ryan Gosling got nominated as Ken. And there was definitely some controversy around that, giving, the thematic elements of the film.
He's kin enough.
He is Knuff. He was Knuff enough to win a nomination for Best Actor. But.
Yeah, we're not saying that Ryan Gosling was great in it. We really enjoyed him, but it is weird seeing a movie that is Barbie, female-directed, female-led, about female empowerment and everything. And there's so many different messages and meanings behind it.
Sure.
That the only main person that got an Oscar nom was Ryan Gosling.
Right. Like I said, not to diminish that at all, but it is genuinely surprising that Margot nor Greta got nominated. But like you said, it's award shows. Feel about them, any way that you want to feel about.
Yeah, because they're kind of mixed. Like you have some that it's definitely based on what they did, but there's also the impact on the movie theater experience. How much money it makes or where it went. And like there's a lot of different factors that go into how they vote. So I was just curious to see why they didn't make the short list. Again, there was many great films last year, but he said, if it's nominated for Best Picture, most of the time you get that director will be within there, which a lot of the others were.
Right.
But she wasn't. So
kind of take that what you will. I mean, it's not the end all be all by any means. And like I said, a lot of people have very strong opinions about award shows in general.
Very strong. A
lot of it's warranted, but I would love to be in just a fly on the wall to have those conversations of what actually goes into making these nominations and how strongly they do deliberate these things when they put them out. Because like them or not, they are barometers for film success, and even these actors and people that work on these films, putting Academy Award winner next to your name is a huge boost to not only your resume, but your cred for any project you work on moving forward too. Because when you can attach Oscar winner, insert name here to a film, it lends that much more credence to
more projects, more money, more everything for them. Just having that on there, so it is a big deal to them.
It really is.
So yeah, there's a lot of controversy about it. If you want to talk about it all with us, leave a comment in the video. We actually have a Discord. Come join our Discord. Talk to us about it and how you feel. Like, we will absolutely talk about anything we talk about on this podcast, anything that we don't have a chance to talk about. We would love to talk about it with you in our Discord, in our comments, anything else. Just reach out and we'd love to talk to you about it. Because I said if you look at Twitter or anywhere else, because I'm not calling it X, it's Twitter still. There are a lot of opinions about it, not from just us, but, Ryan Gosling, he did put out a statement. You have a lot of people put out statements about it, too, who feel that, some of these nominations just didn't feel right this year. Yeah. And that's not saying anybody who did get nominated wasn't deserving. There's some great films that we haven't got to see, but we've heard such buzz about that deserve what they got. But at the same time, it's just, like you said, why did they make that decision?
Sure. It's one of those things that you just never know. But like Brad said, if you want to join our Discord, we will put the link in the video, and you can come find us, come chat with us. Well, we'd love to have you for sure.
Now, there is one thing I know that probably going to get a lot of Emmy nods and everything else. This is a new TV show, probably the biggest show of the year that is launched so far, is Masters of the Air.
I can't wait to talk about that. So that is actually the TV show that we are going to review today. Masters of the Air is new on Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus. You know which
words
one
are hard.
Words are very hard.
I understand that.
I am tired. Apple TV Plus. And the first 2 episodes just dropped. It's from Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks are 2 of the executive producers on the show. It takes place back in World War II, similar in the style of, if you've watched Band of Brothers or The Pacific, it's kind of in that same breadth of time period and scope of the film. It's about the 100th bomb group in World War II, and it's a really interesting show so far. Like I said, they've only dropped 2 episodes, but I actually really enjoyed the first 2 episodes. What did you think about it?
I thought it did a good job with these first 2 episodes, kind of setting us up the world. Because, we all know about World War II and everything like that. So you're trying to establish what they're going through, but you're also trying to give us that connections to these pilots, to the people on the ground, kind of giving you that overview of how did these bombers back then handle the war. Like, you had navigators working overnight to get the plan set, then one's on the plane trying to get everything. And it was really interesting to see the historical and military part of how they would be doing these operations back in, the 1940s and all that whole time span of World War II. But I thought it was great done. You had, you got Austin Butler as one of the main characters. You got a pretty stellar cast overall, but I thought they all did a phenomenal job, and it's a gorgeous to look at. Like even some of the battle, air scenes or the explosions and everything else. I think it was a $300 million season, something like that. 250, 300 million. Like they spend quite a lot of money on it. It shows. Like there's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to their wardrobe, to the planes, to everything. But I really enjoyed, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of it, like seeing how this series progresses, because we know it's going to get a little more dramatic. There's going to be more stuff that happens, but it's set a good, solid groundwork to where eventually they're going to go.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, some of the complaints I hear sometimes from these types of shows is it takes a minute to get to the point. But you got to understand that when they're telling these character stories and when you're dealing with an ensemble cast, they have to give you a reason to care about these characters. So you have to get a little bit of their background and what they're going through for you to, care about what happens to them. There has to be, context to the consequence, for lack of a better term, right? So you have to have context to these characters to understand the consequences of what they're going through, what happens to them. Are you supposed to care? How do you feel about them? And they do a good job of, like you said, just dealing with how all of these different people deal with being at war. So you have some characters who can't sit up in a plane without getting sick, that are tasked with very important things. You have people that in the heat of the moment, like do something that affects not only them, but the rest of the crew because they make a bad decision, not to get into spoiler territory or anything, but those are the type of things that it touches on, and they do a really good job of dealing with the weight and the gravity of that. And I'm really excited to see where they take the rest of it because they did do a surprise drop on Friday with 2 episodes. I didn't realize they were doing both.
Yeah, our understanding was that we were getting the first episode and we got the first 2.
Yeah, so it gave us a little extra to kind of dive into, and I think that, in my opinion, I think that helps with my review of it, because had we just done the first episode in a box, I may have a different opinion on the show than I do now, having seen 2 episodes instead of 1, right? So I think it was a smart job by Apple to put out both episodes. And if you plan on watching it at home, they do weekly drops on Fridays, so you have an opportunity to catch up if you haven't. The episodes are a little under an hour each.
Right. I think one of them was right at an hour around that, and the other was just a little bit lower. I think the 3rd episode, looking ahead, was like 48 minutes. So they're going to fluctuate, but they're going to be around an hour.
So it's easily digestible weekly if you can carve out like an hour to watch, which we plan on. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how this whole story plays out. I use the word fun loosely because it's a very serious subject matter.
Yes,
it's war. It's not a comedy. It's not it's very serious drama series that I think eventually is going to just absolutely rake in awards when it's done.
And kind of you touched on with how it can be a slow burn to start. Like when you're looking at something that's historical, that's drama, that's telling a different story about something that really happened, you've got to set the grounds. You've got to get it going. It's going to be a slow burn, but I don't think it took that long. Like it gave you some action, got you some flying, then it took you back to learn more about the characters, and it went back. And I think it has a good balance between that. And I absolutely love Band of Brothers. It's one of my favorite kind of war series, anything that's been done, like brilliantly done. Like it still holds up and is so good to watch now.
Absolutely.
The Pacific follow-up to it was fantastic as well. It's hard to touch Band of Brothers with what they did. Like when it came out, the way they did it, you had David Schwimmer and a bunch of Tom Hardy and James There's a lot of people that
a lot of big names
now that you have, nowadays are huge names in that series, but it was fantastic. And they've done a good job so far with Masters of the Air. Like I'm invested. I want to see more. They're already getting some characters you want to cheer for. Some of them you're like, all right, this guy's kind of a shifty guy.
Sure.
We got to see kind of where he goes. And also seeing the antics, you're getting a little bit of fun. Like without giving too much away, there was a race that they had to do that was fun and silly, then met right into the real drama. And this is, I know a little bit about World War II, but there's had to be those kind of moments for them in between the base, in between the bad parts of being at war. You know, they had to find fun and things where they could just to not go insane during that time.
Sure. I do. That does remind me of the one particular scene. It's very short, but the fight in the alley behind the bar, which is hilarious.
Yep.
You'll know what I mean if you watch it, but that was really good. That was fun. But yeah, it's there's so much breadth to it, and so like the attention to detail is incredible. So far, to your point of like you could tell they really took their time to shoot this and to like all the subtle little things people do and how people acted during the war. You could tell they did a lot of research into like putting this together, and it's really starting to show.
Yeah, it's showing the same care that you saw from Band of Brothers in the Pacific. Like they really care about this story that they're telling. You know, it's a very serious time of our history, so like they're taking it very seriously. And it's well worth it. So, you know, if you're not into the historical films or shows, if you're not into war stuff, it may not do a whole lot to drag you into it. There's great performances. There's great everything to it so far. But if that's not your thing, it may not be able to bring it to you. But if you have any interest at all from Band of Brothers, Pacific, any war related, you know, that time period pieces, you're going to enjoy it, or we hope you enjoy it. We hope you at least check it out, because 2 episodes in, it's well worth the watch.
Agreed.
But as mentioned, it dropped on first 2 episodes on Friday. Episode 3 and all the other episodes will be dropping every Friday from here on out, and you can watch it on Apple TV+.
Yep. It'll be a total of 9 episodes, so you'll have 7 more weeks of brand new episodes to get through the end of the series.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to see where they go with it. It's so well done.
I couldn't agree more. And to kind of piggyback off that just a little bit, just kind of go back a little bit. If you haven't seen it, I definitely strongly recommend going back and at least checking out Band of Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see the people and the faces that you would recognize. If you haven't seen it, don't look up anybody that's in it. Go in and watch it, and you will be shocked at the amount of A-list, big name actors that are in that show. And
I spoiled a few, but even if you saw them, like, okay, that's a really young this person, that person, because going back and watching it again, I think last year I watched a few episodes. I didn't finish the whole thing, but I will. Yeah, I was like, I didn't remember him being in it, or him, they're in it? Yeah, like there's so many big names in it.
It's absolutely loaded.
But past that, it's one of the best series to me kind of ever made. Like Band of Brothers is a pinnacle series of TV that was made. Like it's up there with, you know, some people would put The Sopranos and everything. I would put Band of Brothers right up there with some of the best TV series ever made. Just the attention to detail, the drama, everything was unbelievably fantastic.
It's for my money the best miniseries of all time. Like there's other shows that had longer like tenure and, you know, overall breadth of series that were incredible as well. But for bang for your buck miniseries in a vacuum, it's the best, in my opinion, the best miniseries ever made.
And this is also, like, we're talking about the first 2 episodes. It really is with these miniseries and with these things, because we don't know if this one's going to be a miniseries, if there'll be more than one season. I haven't seen anything on that. You really need to see kind of the whole picture. Like, you can break apart each episode, but there is an overall story to appreciate that you have to get to, that, you know, you need to see it all to have the full opinion on it, I feel, with this type of thing, because it's got something to say, and it's going to take a little bit to get there to say it all.
Sure, absolutely.
So it's like you said, you want to say a lot of fun, but you enjoy it because it's so well done. The acting is so well done, special effects, everything. So it's enjoyable, and we hope you check it out.
Yeah, it's fun in the sense that it captures your attention and gets you enthralled in the story, and it kind of keeps a grip on you. Like, I was watching it, and it didn't feel like I was watching it for an hour. It really didn't. Like, it kept my attention the whole time. It wasn't one of those that you can kind of casually look at your phone while you're watching a TV show. Like, I had my phone face down, like totally enthralled in the story they were telling. It was that good, in my opinion.
Yep. Now, speaking of being very good and also a war period piece, we're going to head on over into our film review now with Godzilla Minus One Minus Color. So this was one of our top films of 2023 with Godzilla Minus One. Of course, with coming out now, they did a black and white edit. And we were curious, like, with being one of our top films of last year, how is this black and white cut going to change things?
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
I think for this, I think we need to switch it up a little bit. I think we need to have a little fun with it and give the people that watch the video version of this kind of a little treat while we do this review of this film. What do you think?
What do you got in mind? Okay. It's a little different, but
it is a little different. So if you're watching this, you're welcome. If you're listening, tune into the video and see what we did.
We're not crazy.
A little crazy.
Okay. But yeah, so they're bringing it back in black and white, which, you may not think too much of something being done in black and white, but with this film in particular, I felt it was a fantastic addition to this already great film. Like the drama felt deeper. The terror with Godzilla felt a little bit more. Like he felt a little more frightening. And I felt, and it was our second time seeing it too. So I think on top with that it really made us appreciate the film a lot more. And it just felt more well-rounded and just, I came out really loving the film after seeing again. Like I think the black and white version to me might be the definitive edition. Like you take out all the color and make it black and white and then it's the definitive edition, but it is.
Well, one of the brilliant things that I think about it is like when we gave our review of it, we mentioned that it had this feel of an old school monster film. But what are old school monster films really? The black and white versions of the old Godzilla films that we talk about that we love like so much, and literally putting it in a black and white version gave it that same feel with like a modern twist to it. You know what I mean? Like it was so well done, and like you said, you could feel the tension in the film. Even like so much more watching it. And I agree. Like I actually like the film better now than I even did like before I watched it the first time. Yep. Like if I were to go back and redo my, top 5 films, I'd probably bump it up a notch. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I might move it up again. Like
it definitely moved up.
It had that kind of an impact on me. We both kind of walked out of the theater like, wow, that was incredible. Like that's how I wish I would have saw the movie the first time. And that's not taking anything away from the version in color because it's a brilliant film in its own right. Yeah. But putting it in black and white, I don't know. It made it feel like such an old school. Like it hits you in the nostalgia. Like I said, with the modern twist, like it was so fun. Yeah. It was so fun to watch. And we use the term fun a lot. We use it very loosely, but like I think it warranted here if you enjoy those old school monster movies and those old school like Godzilla, King Kong monster films, to give this a watch if you haven't already seen it. And even if you have, watch the black and white version and see how differently you feel about this film.
Absolutely. We definitely recommend going back to the theater, see it again. You actually have a few days left now. So February, I think it goes through February 1st, then all versions of Godzilla Minus One are out of theater. So if you haven't had a chance to see the original full color or the black and white, we definitely recommend. Don't let that it's fully Japanese and subtitled hold you back from it. After a little bit, you don't even care, or like you're not even paying attention anymore that you're reading everything. Like you're so engrossed in the film. And like I said, the black and white, there were some flaws with the special effects, and some things I think were intentional because it's a modern love letter to Godzilla.
Sure.
It's done during the war as well, back in the 1940s. It's about a kamikaze pilot who gives up on his mission to end his own life for his country and how he deals with it. And going back with how the black and white affected, I felt that story felt so much more dramatic in black and white. I don't know why with having being black and white, but just that whole story of him searching for his honor again, or dealing with having no honor, which is so important to the Japanese people, especially then, and everything else. Like it felt so much more dramatic.
Absolutely.
And it had a different impact. The film just felt different, but like any little flaws that the special effects had, I think it was like 35 people did the special effects for this film, under $15 million. Incredible job. They got the first Godzilla Oscar nomination for special effects.
Yep.
For anything for Godzilla, and they got a special effects nom. Well deserved.
Absolutely.
But the black and white treatment just made it feel like such a more complete film and such a loving throwback to the classic Toho Godzillas.
It's so good, man.
It's well worth the watch. We've seen it twice now. I almost want to go back and see it a third time just because it was that good.
I definitely plan on watching it again when it comes out on digital. It's one of those that I call it like a rainy day or a cold day type of film that you can really watch. Like the weather's bad, you're sitting at home, you don't really feel like going out. Let's put on a monster movie. It's great to watch around Halloween time. I can imagine it being a good like Halloween type film. Not to say that it's like a horror movie, but like you know what I'm saying. Like when you start that time of year when you start to watch monster movies, like I think you could throw it into the rotation there and it worked too. You know what I mean? Like it's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. I think, I really hope with the digital release we get to see both. We get the full color and the black and white because I think it's important to have both of them available. The black and white was that significant of a change that I really want to be able to see it in black and white again.
Yeah, and I know we've talked in previous episodes about the physical media and those going away. If there's like a DVD version I can buy that has like both films, I will get it.
Absolutely purchasing that.
For sure.
And like even with the action and stuff in here, like you got a Godzilla that you felt was terrifying and you got to see the destructive. So this is why we highly recommend seeing in theaters because you feel that destruction with all the bass and the sound in the theater when he is doing his atomic breath and or heat breath, I think what they called it in the movie.
Something like that,
and destroying some of the cities and stuff, you felt that destruction. And it impacted the film a lot. Like you really felt that this was a indestructible creature that is terrifying and is truly destructive in every sense of the word. Like they did such a good job showing that destructive nature of Godzilla. Because you look at the more American Godzilla films that we've had, and we've got another one coming up with Godzilla versus Kong, that the action can be a lot more over the top, crazy CG. And there was a lot of CG and special effects in here, but a lot of destruction felt practical. It just felt right when it came to doing this. Like it paid homage to the old while also taking it a little more seriously because, there's the gifs and stuff of there of Godzilla flying through the air on his tail, just waving his hands and stuff. It's serious take on Godzilla while also paying tribute to all those that have come behind it. Like it's a modern classic love letter to monster films and Godzilla, and it's well worth your time to see it in color or black and white. But after seeing the black and white version, I think we both would highly recommend if you have time this week before it's out of theaters on, I think either February 1st is the last day or it goes away February 1st, get out to a theater and see it. It's going to be well worth your time and money to go see this movie in theaters.
Absolutely.
Just so good. And it definitely went up my list from last year after seeing this black and white version. And I think seeing it a second time also helped that I know the story and knew what's happening, so I'm paying a little bit more attention to the details of it all, of what I'm looking for, and the story felt so much more well-rounded, and just everything just felt so much smoother and better in this black and white version.
Absolutely agreed.
So good.
Yeah. So I think that went pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah.
You think? I bet I'm kind of tired of looking at you in the black and white version. I kind of want to see it normal now.
Okay. We hope you enjoyed that. We want to have a little fun with you.
Gotta love it. So there's some stuff coming out next week or this week that it's definitely going to be worth a watch. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to is the new spy action comedy film from Matthew Vaughn called Argyle, starring Henry Cavill. A slew of other famous names. It's one of those Rolodex, like, name them, they're in the film kind of films, but it looks so much fun. It looks absolutely brilliant, and we plan on definitely going and seeing that next week.
Henry Cavill's haircut is going to haunt everybody's dreams because he's got that, I'm going to call it the old Street Fighter, like, Guile, flat top, big really hair that just looks ridiculous.
It really
but
does.
Matthew Vaughn did such an incredible job with the Kingsman movies, which is his original take, because he's done, like, X-Men First Class, and he's done a bunch of movies, and I love the Kingsman series. So to see him trying something sillier and goofier with Argyle here is looking like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Will manners maketh man in this film too?
Probably.
I hope so. Yeah, that's one that's coming out this weekend, and it's another big film that we encourage you to go see as well. We'll be reviewing that next week on the podcast. Also coming out is The Promised Land, a new film with Mads Mikkelsen that's coming out that looks really exciting too. So that's definitely another one to check out. Coming out on streaming is Orion in the Dark and on Netflix, I believe.
Yep.
And then The Tiger's Apprentice on Paramount Plus, which are both animated feature films. Yep. Which are both exciting to check out as well. Like I'm looking forward to watching those too. I don't think we'll be reviewing them, but it's definitely a couple to watch.
It's always interesting to get different takes on. Apparently, with these, it's looked quite different in the tonage too, because you got one that's more martial arts, kind of fun, and the other's a little more darker, more nature, spiritual. So it's both of them be kind of interesting to check out, seeing how these two animated films kind of not getting the theatrical release, so we're getting the streaming releases to see how they feel. We also have kind of two somewhat big releases, at least one big release and then another that we reviewed in episode 2. The Beekeeper is going to be on demand on January 30th, along with Wonka. So we didn't review Wonka on the podcast, but we had a lot of fun with that. It pays homage to Gene Wilder a bit in that. It's a little sillier, fun version of Wonka without going into the Johnny Depp kind of Tim Burton crazy version, like sillier over the top version. I think they did a really good job with that. And so to have both of those, quite different, Beekeeper being an over top action movie, the other being an over the top family comedy, you got both those choices for on demand purchase on January 30th.
That's awesome.
And then, so coming up on episode 5 of them.
About to have 5, man.
As Josh mentioned, we'll be reviewing Argyle, and we'll also be checking out the 3rd episode of Masters of the Air. Again, we're really excited. We love the first 2 episodes, so we really want to see where this series goes and takes us from here.
And we might dive a little bit more into the plot at that point because, 2 episodes in, we don't want to spoil too much because it is just fresh. But I think when we get into episode 3, we might talk a little bit more about the plot of the show as it is kind of moving along and kind of keeping up with it in real time. But that's just because we're just as excited about this show as anything that we could talk about. But I think talking about what direction the story's going in and the things that they touch on it'll be a lot of fun to talk about for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting both like Argyle being more silly, over the top, action spy comedy, and then the more grounded, realistic Masters of the Air is a good contrast of things to talk about.
It's gonna be a fun dynamic, man.
Yep,
I can't wait for it.
Just like us,
absolutely. But that's all the time we have for this week's episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. We want to thank you again so much for joining us for these first 4 episodes. All the kind words and comments, they don't go unnoticed. We appreciate them so much. Thank you for everybody that takes the time every week to listen. I know people that have said they listen or watch while they're doing their chores. People are sitting and watching with their families. We absolutely love that. We can't thank you enough for your support. Yep. As always, you can watch us on YouTube for the video versions. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you get the videos as soon as they drop. And also check us out anywhere you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. You can catch us on just about anywhere you can listen to a podcast. So even if you don't want to look at us, we'd still love it if you listen to us as well.
Yeah, if you don't have a preferred podcast platform, we have the podcast embedded on our website. Yep. You can find all of our social medias, our Discord, everything at we'llbringthepopcorn.com.
Yeah, please join us in Discord. We'd really like to kick that off. Something we just launched. We have links to each of our first 3 episodes as well. We'd love to have you in there to start a conversation. Ask us anything you want. We'll love to interact with you in there as well. So we look forward to that. But that is all the time we have for this week. We thank you so much once again, and we will join you next week where we will be reviewing Argyle and Masters of the Air Episode 3. For Brad, I am Josh. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.